ARK Survival Evolved really hammered home the last word of its name, as we started out as primitive, clueless bobs on the beach, surrounded by dinosaurs, to flying around in unlimited tech suits in space, with mechanical tech vehicles in tow.
Oh, hi, Mark.
The game has certainly evolved over the years, but what exactly made it evolve? What exactly changed the game? You're right, kids, it's Raasclark, and welcome to another top 10 as voted by you. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share around, and let's get into it. So in at number 10 is the Federation Tek Suit. Whilst many suggestions simply summarised Genesis 2 dropping in June 2021 as a huge influence to a different style of ARK, it was important to dig out exactly what about it was the catalyst. Whilst tech giving drops and missions certainly threw a whole new balance to the game, dropping you in with a tech suit skin and the same powers you'd only get from grinding the endgame Guardians was a huge reflection on surviving anymore. In fact, tossing that term away as you boosted around the map with an infinite respawning suit, requiring no element and allowing the map to be your playground. Thankfully, confined to Genesis 2 only, the overspill of tech rewards as a result of progressing so quick on the map reshaped the need for Tek Tier right off the bat. In at number 9 is the Flyer Nerf. Released way back in March 2017, it's almost hard to believe we had uncontested Argies, agile pteranodons, and breakneck speed wyverns dominating official servers. The latter likely influenced a need for a change and balance, with all flying creatures having their movement speed points refunded to use for other stats, stamina consumed even when unmounted, and imprints dropped from providing any flyer boost. Stamina was heavily reduced in compensation, but a heavy backlash arrived from many players, feeling flyers were too nerfed, and after some further fine-tuning, we finally got a server config to at least allow these once again for unofficials. In at number 8 is the Corpse Locator. Another change added that it's unbelievable to think otherwise now. Before its arrival in June 2017, players were forced to use memory and familiarity to find their decomposing loot-filled bodies out in the wild, in a race against time before it disappeared completely, and with it all your hard-earned gear. So it was met with resounding joy to hear any deaths from now on would shoot a beam of light into the sky to quickly locate your corpse. Whilst it can be disabled if chosen to, in those fast-paced, stress-inducing moments, it's a huge benefit that is by far taken for granted. In at number 7 is Titans. Similar to number 10, whilst many of you felt extinction in its entirety reshaped survival in ARK, a heavy influence and a big reason why many players build in caves today was the introduction of Titans in November 2018. Huge monolithic creatures brought with the map were found to be tameable, and with them, whopping powerful attacks with the potential of decimating bases if not defended well. Whilst there's some argument they are more squishy than they appear, the sight of such things, possibly even larger than your entire base, forced players to rethink where to build, and remains a factor on locations to this day. In at number 6 is no flyer maps. Again, tied to a map more than its influence. Aberration, brought to us in December 2017, provided a completely new outlook on surviving ARK. Forced to be grounded with no flyers allowed, bar at the time only one gliding creature, it was met to many rejoiceful players. Being firmly stuck to the floor, retreading a time players on the island recalled surviving before opening out with flyers provided a grander scale of gameplay, dwarfing you to your surroundings, and a reason why Aberration is a favourite to players today. It's just a wonder why Genesis 1, with the same offering, didn't generate the same appeal. In at number 5 is Tek Tier Phase 1. Surprisingly lower than expected, the introduction of Tek Tier back in January 2017, and the many tech updates to follow completely reshaped the ARK Survival Evolved that we knew, creating a renewed desire to beat the Island Guardians with the rewarding unlocks and element resource awaiting. In turn, it abandoned its roots and outlook on primitive surviving. Many still argue today this was the end of ARK as they knew it, but with so many updates that followed, cementing its evolution to the type of game we know now, would ARK have continued its success without this path and accompanied storyline? In at number 4 is the net projectile. One of the more recent revolutions of the game, before which would confine us to building all manner of eyesore trap designs, and whilst it's still limited to a range of creatures, the arrival of this projectile in June 2021 that temporarily trapped them, as well as its uses for PvP, has become a mainstay of ARK than most. Any budding tamer wouldn't be seen without one now, and shouldn't, offering a reason to craft harpoon launchers and go wild on the wildlife you want to take home. In at number 3 is the Taming Tracker. Unthinkable that we coped otherwise. Up until the UI Taming HUD update in July 2020, creatures were knocked out, leaving you to calculate its time to starve tame before running home for kibble, and then losing where exactly you left your knocked out friend. The ability to click a button within your menu and keep track of it from anywhere on the map is by far one of the best features brought to the game, allowing you to focus on other tasks whilst you wait the hours needed for your prized dinos to adorn green text. In at number 2 is the kibble system rework. A huge game changer to ARK, and perhaps the first that began to consider the base location size a player needed. Before, players were dependent on a giant second base with a literal Noah's Ark worth of dinos, or producing eggs for their specifically named kibble needed to tame a specific creature, which would then produce that specific kibble. But in the ever-growing roster of creatures added, something needed to change, with the developers realising this dream upon extinction arriving, but eventually realising it with the kibble rework as part of the Homestead update of March 2019. Redefining eggs cooked with new recipes to simply 6 tiers of kibble. Furthermore, with the realisation that higher tiered kibbles could still tame lower tiered kibbles required, as well as imprint, meant all you really need now is one set of extraordinary egg makers, and a much smaller base size as a result, especially with number 1 on this list. But before we get to that, let's take a quick look at the game changers that didn't just make the cut. And in at number 1, Cryopods. Arriving with Extinction in November 2018, the adaptation of a similar mod enabling you to store creatures in tiny pods and keep them safe from harm's way in a complementing fridge was, and seemingly is, the biggest influential change ARK has ever received. Before its arrival, seeing tribes needing incredible spaces to store their creatures, in turn stressing servers and needing to travel anywhere with a conga line behind if looking to take on the harder challenges of the map, whilst the ability to upload and download creatures improved both traversing and server performance, Cryopods was the movement bases could thrive at even the smallest sizes. And artifact caves became much easier to delve into, not forgetting the new range of opportunities raiding in PvP. A win-win for both players and wildcard, and a guarantee to remain in some form for the next game's offering. And do you agree, or do you think I missed something, or have another top 10 suggestion? Comment below, let me know. My name's Raasclark, don't forget to like, share and subscribe, and as always, peace out.